My name is Patricia Kathleen, and this podcast series will contain interviews I conduct with women, female identified, and non binary individuals regarding their professional stories and personal narrative as it relates to their perspective. This podcast is designed to hold a space for all individuals to learn from their counterparts, regardless of age, status, or industry. We intend to transparently investigate the evolving global dialogue regarding underrepresented figures in all industries across the USA and abroad. By hosting these stories and conversations, we aim to contribute to the changing platform and representation of these individuals for the future. Now let's start the conversation. Welcome back. I'm your host, Patricia, and today I am sitting down with Madison Eker. She is the founder of Some of Us Festival, and you can locate it online. It's www.someofusfest.com. That is SUMOFUSFEST.com. Welcome, Madison.
Thank you, Patricia. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you as well. We did kind of a preview of this where we did an interview that got ruined with the files. And so I'm excited to kind of come back in and dive even deeper, even though redoing podcasts is rough. I feel like the second go round is always genius. And for everyone listening, I am going to read a brief bio on Madison. But before I do that, I'll offer you a quick roadmap of where my inquiries will be headed today, so you can kind of have a trajectory before we go there. I'll first look at Madison's academic and professional story leading up into this point, any pertinent issues or points along the way that she found were kind of integral into leading her here. And then I'll directly look at unpacking Some of Us Fest. I'll look at the website and then also what the festival is, what it endeavors to do, when it was conceptualized, and then when it was founded, launched, all of the important figures along the way, funding, all of those things. And then we'll also look at the ethos behind it and some of the motivation and how some of that has changed, particularly given the current state of the COVID-19 pandemic and how all of that has kind of unfolded for both Madison and her endeavors with Some of Us. And then we'll look at goals that Madison may have over the next 1 to 3 years. I know those are changing for everyone. The dialogue on that landscape is really diversified. And then we'll wrap everything up with advice that Madison has for those of you who are listening, who would like to attend or get involved or even emulate some of what she's done in her career with the development of Some of Us. A quick bio is promised on Madison. Madison Eker is a trailblazer in the LGBTQ plus wellness industry and the visionary behind Some of Us Festival. As the first ever wellness festival for women, trans, and non-binary folks, Madison is revolutionizing the way in which wellness and authenticity manifest within her respective communities. So, Madison, I am so obsessed with your festival and have been since first learning about it and interviewing you some weeks ago. But I'm hoping before we get into unpacking that, would you mind kind of giving a description of your brief academic background and early professional life, whatever important points brought you to development of Some of Us?
Yes. Well, thank you. So I wouldn't say the academic part of myself is what led me to Some of Us Festival. I went to university, but I would say that didn't really have too much of a role in my event production life. I went to school for painting, and although that was like a fantastic experience, I would say I was brought up in the event world. My father's an entrepreneur, and I really learned and got my education, I'd say, from him and from touring with him, and then from also working in nightlife and working with events. So actually just direct experience versus learning it in school. And sometimes I think that's the best method of education because it was real and I got to see what went wrong. I got to see what went right. And then I got to emulate that as well.
Nice. Yeah, it's cool when you have like that early disposition. Growing up, having like event exposure and things like that, was it a specific genre or was it across all platforms? You mentioned nightlife, like was there an industry specific?
Yeah, so my dad is a personal development speaker and writer, and he would tour all over the world. And I toured with him for a lot of my life, and I helped like pass out papers even when I was like a tiny little child to like 1,000 people in the audience, or I'd help run the bookstore in the back end, or I'd help with Amex cards. So I was really involved with a lot of the things he was doing. Pretty much every summer he would put on these camps. They were called warrior training camps, and they're big events that would last all week. And I would help with logistics or run that, or do a whole portion. So that was a lot of my life, was doing a lot of that, also going to school, of course, too. But yeah, personal growth was really big with him and in my family as well. And my mom is into it too. And then when I got older, I worked in the nightlife and event industry too, saw more of like the club nightlife. So I was able to experience like more of the lighting and sound and things like that too.
Yeah, and there's so many moving parts, it's almost like imperative that you have some kind of an early exposure to that, or serve a massive internship, and this kind of launches us into my fascination with what you did in launching a festival. I honestly hadn't pondered the thought too much prior to meeting you, but when I think of launching festivals, I don't think of an individual being capable of doing that. I picture massive corporations with huge teams of people, and a ton of money that they can put together, and that it's usually fueled by marketing or some other less altruistic motive, and things of that nature. I just would never surmise that it would be the idea of one individual. So I'm wondering, what was your inspiration? When did you start to culminate this idea? Was it one day? Was it over a period of years that you were like, I'm going to do a festival?
Yeah, well, for all of those that are listening, it always just starts with one. I mean, even the people that have these massive teams and lots of funding, it had to start with one person and one idea. So, I mean, that is very daunting. And of course, like jumping into a festival, you have to be somewhat, I don't like, out of your mind. You have to be
Yeah.
somewhat like, what, like, you're going to do this? And
Yeah.
you have to also be okay with the success and the failures. So I'm okay with that. I mean, I know like what's the worst that can happen? I lose all my money, I lose like everything I have, and then what's going to happen to me? Or I try and I do my very, very best, and I know that we're putting something good out into the world. So I mean, I got two options there. So you have to be a risk taker too. Um, but yes, I wanted to get into this because I felt like there was a direct need for the community, and the why is much bigger than myself. And so that is like pretty
Yeah.
much this whole thing started. And I wanted to put on a festival, first of all, because my background's in events. And then second of all, I wanted something fun. Like the mission behind this is wellness for the women, trans, and non-binary communities. And just holding like some sort of like meetup or something didn't seem appealing enough. I like events. I want to go meet people. I want to go have fun. I want to go dance. I want to like go like experience life. And I felt like this is something I would want. And if I could bring that to the world, like that's like my contribution.
Yeah. And we talked earlier about off the record before about how it was interesting. You kind of enlightened me to the concept that, in a lot of non cisgendered, communities, you have a couple of pockets still, even in this latter day of like 2020, hugging 2021. It's this, there's still kind of like the pub or the recovery institute, like the idea of being, this adult, this young adult, and where you go to hang out with your people is still these like very kind of specifically in recovery, or, utilizing some kind of stimulant to meet up. And I thought that was interesting. Can you kind of speak to, was that part of why you chose the health and wellness, or was it more reaping back to your childhood? Like, how did that all work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I agree with you. Like what we just spoke about is there's two opposite spectrums. It's like you're either in recovery like AA, or and you're totally sober, or you're going out partying a lot, and there's no spaces, or not a lot of them, or barely any even that I know of,
Yeah.
that are for the women, trans, non-binary community, or even LGBTQ plus communities, that really just involve more wellness, or that middle ground of like, we're here for you before you get to needing to go to AA and just cutting out everything, or having to go to a nightclub every single night. So I mean, the queer community started underground in nightclubs and in like bar scenes, and it's still kind of doing the same thing. Like a lot of people meet up in those spaces as well. Like that's kind of where you find your community. And I have found that being in I'm a queer woman, I'm being in that community for 15 years. Like that's where I've met all my friends, and that's where people go to meet up. And I know that's not for every single person, but I'm really trying to cultivate a space that's like this positive, conscious wellness space that people go have fun at. And it doesn't just have to be this bar and nightlife scene. So it came out of a need, I'd say, for mental health, number one, and number two, a need for space. Of course, like it's in my background, wellness is really important to me, but more than that, like LGBTQ plus community struggles with the most depression and suicide more than any other community. And yet we continue to meet at bars. And it's a cyclical effect of like, oh, I have depression or mental health issues, and now I'm going to go meet at a bar and meet up with my friends. It's really hard for me to just keep doing that and trying to, solve or heal myself. So I'm trying to make it easy for people and cultivate friendships and cultivate love that's in a more positive and constructive atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an amazing endeavor. I want to climb deeper into ethos, but before we do that, as promised, for all of my little nerdy founder friends out there, and entrepreneurial spirits alike, can you give us just the quick and dirty breakdown of the logistics? So, when it was founded, did you take any funding? Do you have co-founders, and any other like quick logistics?
Mhm. So it was founded in 2019. We are baby new. So that's when I got my business, like actual license and the EIN number. But it took a year before that of just mapping out what the vision was and like trying to clearly think about the roadmap and how we would get there and the planning and logistics, even before we got a business number. Like it took me 6 months to pick a name like that, and just like trying to sit on that, because I was like, this is going to be my baby. I'm going to have this for like 45 years. I
Yeah.
really think of something that's going to be great, and trying to think of like the branding and the vision and who we're trying to attract and how we're going to do that. So that took a year. Then we got our license in 2019. And then from there, it was production and building and trying to create a database out of the ethers of nothing. So, I mean, it took 2 years in the making to have the live festival launch for 2020. And then of course, COVID hit. So we never even got to have the live festival. But in those 2 years, like it was pretty remarkable, the things that we got to do and how much traffic we actually got to drive to the event itself. And so we kind of grew from nothing to having 24,000 followers on Instagram, having a database of 5,000 emails, having people really excited about it. And I think the reason for that is there's a real need. And when you do something that's actually needed and like there's a mission behind it, you build it, it will come. And then when we're talking about funding, it's completely self-funded. Grassroots, I have zero funding from anyone else. I took out my 401k I worked in management as well, like through my whole 20s. And I was lucky to get a great 401k. So I took that out. I also have my grandma's inheritance, and I wanted to do something really special with that and give back. And that's what it's funded with. And just for entrepreneurs, you got to be super creative. So the money that comes into the festival, it stays into the festival, and like that's what I use for that. And then I have my little side things is where I could feed myself, is like I rent out my condo and I actually live with my parents, and I'm going to have to do that for probably the next 3 years because I know that's what it takes to get a business off of the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's amazing to be very thoughtful about it. On a personal point of view, cashing out your 401k, which I think a lot of people have had to do over, the past couple of months, but being thoughtful about how one spends. I think people have returned to the idea of being thoughtful about how one spends inheritance or money saved away or anything like that. And the idea that you're putting it back into the social impact of putting it back into humanity and your humanity, your community, and this concept of a festival and bringing people together is it's really special. I think it adds another energy. It doesn't matter what you buy into. If you're, praying to crystals or a devout Catholic, like everyone believes in an energy of what you're doing and the intention that you're putting into your life. And it's such a meaningful thing to take money, in my point of view, like that and really put it forward. Your grandmother, I mean, her legacy moving on with this movement, just the beauty in that is amazing. I'm wondering, can you elaborate? You kind of dropped a little seed, and I'm wondering if you can tell us the story about how you came up with the name.
Oh, yes. So I really wanted something catchy. I wanted something that has multiple meanings. Like, I played with the idea of acronyms quite a bit. And I was like, okay, it could have like intersectional and diversity, and it could have this and movement and whatever. And then it just nothing registered as much as like I was looking up just I wanted something that meant the collective, like something that brought us together. And then just the words of like some of us, and then turning the some into SUM and having it a play on words. So to me, that's the one that ended up sticking. I had like 3 of them. And I pretty much asked all my friends and family members and had them all vote. And in some of us was not the top one, but I just kept thinking about it. And I was like, I think we're going to go with it. We had Omnia, that was one of it. And it had all these like different acronyms with it. And we had a couple of other ones, but then Omnia was taken by like a lot of other businesses and clubs and things like that. So some of us to me means the collective of us, and we're the women, trans, non-binary community. And some of us also means it's like we're a marginalized community within this larger community. So it's the collective of this marginalized community is what some of us means.
Yeah, I love that. That's a cool, and I like the idea that you're like, wasn't the top one, but it's the one that kept coming back to you because it is your baby, and at the end of the day, it should come down to you. And it sounds a lot like naming a baby as well. I think some of that's the exact same trajectory. When we were talking earlier, you got into a part that was really meaningful to me because I hadn't really considered it, and I love things I haven't considered. And you kind of got into communities that there was a very specific reason for a location. Originally, when you were going to do this, you had a location scouted and activities, and it spoke to members who were attending and activities that had been not done as frequently or freeing, such as swimming. Can you kind of speak to some of those, like how that all tied in?
Yeah. So when we were looking for venues, I wanted something that, like you said, felt really free and people can really be themselves, free of judgment, free of any phobias. And I actually read a census that was taken a couple years ago back, and it said it asked trans folks, if you did not have to worry about transphobia for 24 hours, what would you do with your time? And the number one answer was go swimming.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, it really, I consider myself a trans ally for 100%. Like that is my community. And I really wanted to do something along those lines where we can make that a reality. So we have the first celebration swim for trans bodies plus friends. And that's a big, like, everyone jumps into the water. There's floaties, there's music, there's DJs, there's dancers, and everyone just has a great time, not thinking about what they look like and just enjoying playing in the water. And so, like, I really just wanted to make that happen.
Yeah, I love that. And I hadn't really thought about that. For me, the idea of being in a festival that's inclusive and for your community, I felt like that would be enough. And then the concept of like parsing out actual activities that have been just kind of eliminated, out of a lot of people's lives from fear of discrimination and things like that was so moving and powerful. So COVID hit, and I, and this kind of got swept from underneath your feet. You had a date planned, things were moving forward, and you kind of you went to a breaking point. And how did you pivot? What was after the tears, or if there were any? There were a ton from me. I was the biggest ball baby in the world when I got grounded from COVID. But what was your next turn? How did you kind of handle that situation?
Yeah, I definitely went through my grieving time, so I can relate with you there. And after I felt like my world kind of fell down a little bit, I tried to think of what I could do to pick myself back up. And I think, well, just speaking for myself, when you're doing something bigger than you, it's like there is no thoughts about
Yeah.
well, does this keep going or not? It's like, it has to, and who else is going to do it? Like, so, I mean, if someone else was doing it, then great. They could do that and I would join them, but like no one's doing this. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, this still needs to happen. Spaces like this need to happen. Right now they're not happening live. So we decided to go virtual, and currently we have a virtual festival coming up July 24th to 26th, with a lot of the same programming that we have at the live event, and we're calling it our virtual campground. We actually have it programmed to look like a virtual campground, which is super fun. It's really interactive. We will have the live festival happening in 2021 when live events can come back. But for this year, we just wanted to keep the community together, and we made it donation based so that whoever wants to come can come. And we did our best to like create that same like area where you can meet people and network and learn and explore. And like we even have that trans swim as well. So we just had to get super creative. And like that's part of, I think, running events too, is like you're constantly putting out fires. So it's like
Yeah.
just thinking about like, okay, how else can we do that? What's another route is like really great. So just on the topic of that swim, we have this amazing situation where people are going to be in bathtubs or showers or in their swimming pools or in their hot tubs, however they can incorporate water. And then we're going to have them, if they want to raise their hand, we're going to have that little camera on them, and there's going to be two DJs going, and then there's prizes for the most creative swim, and it's sponsored by Dr. Bronner's. We're handing out soap to people, so it's just super fun. And we just wanted, again, to like do something that was exciting where people can showcase what they look like and have water, but of course it's not outside right now.
It's amazing. In fact, that's the number one thing I would think you couldn't do. I love the creativity behind that. Yeah. And you can do anything,
You
you just
can.
need an open mind. That's so fantastic. So if everyone's trying to find out more information about it, they can go to someofusfest.com and learn everything about the dates. And then have you even speculated a month or anything for the 2021 in-person festival?
Yeah, so the in-person festival is May 2021, and I'm really excited about that because now that will be 3 years in the making. But
Yeah.
that's going to be so much fun, and it's going to be a great place for everyone to actually meet in real life and connect with the community. All women and any trans folks and any non-binary folks are welcome, and it's just I can't wait for that.
Are you still thinking about doing it in on the California coastline somewhere like north of LA?
It's actually going to be the closest area will be NorCal and probably Sacramento, San Francisco.
Yeah.
But it's somewhere in between. It's definitely drivable between LA and San Francisco. So accessible for both for sure.
Which, for those of you who haven't done it, is a stunning drive. I live in San Diego, and when I go to San Francisco, I try to drive because that area between Los Angeles and San Francisco is wine country. It's
Mhm.
beautiful. It's one of the best. Well, if you're not on the yet, don't take the 5, take the 1. But yeah, it's awesome. That's fantastic. I look forward to hearing more about that as it kind of comes to fruition, especially since you're adding on this beautiful layer of this preview, of your virtual festival. I think it's going to, people are going to recognize each other in person, from this COVID moment and this virtual festival to the final 2021 in person. It's going to have a totally different life.
And I also think that it gives people a chance to connect with the community that like live in other countries. Like we've had people sign up for the virtual
Yeah.
festival that like live so far away that I'm like, where is that? So it's been really exciting to be able to put that on and create this other form of accessibility. And then, same with the price too. Like, of course, because of all of these, I mean, in all transparency, I lost tons of money because of COVID-19 and being in a live event.
Mm.
But not enough for me to like not have a place to live. So I'm still very lucky.
Mm.
And with that said, I'm trying to create this to be accessible for people to come. That's why it's donation based. We say it's a suggested $45 donation. You get all 3 days. You get every single workshop, and we have workshops ranging from like DreamWorks, yoga, working out, nutrition, like mental health. There's so many fun things, and we have networking and whichever. But if you can pay more, and if you can't, you can't. And then it just like, that's the whole mission, is we get everyone together to just meet and like have a network of kind of more conscious, healthy minded learning and education.
That's so awesome. I can't wait. It's really exciting. I've told we did a pre-interview, as I've mentioned a couple of times, but I've told several of my colleagues and friends and even my daughters about it, and they are kind of over the moon. I haven't talked to anyone who isn't just like, this is wonderful. Why don't we have this yet? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know why Coachella is still going on. Like, I'd rather have more of things like this. There's so many festivals that have been played out or done poorly. I just cannot wait for this one.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, for sure. Moving forward, I'm wondering, and you have your goals kind of set. We've unpacked them, baked into all of this. You've got 2021. You've got the virtual thing that's on your plate right now. But moving forward into the future, do you have goals for the next 1 to 3 years in preparation for 2021, or looking past that? Are you always kind of going to next two festivals out, or can you speak to any of the goals that you've made or that have changed with this?
I'd like to have a live festival that is successful every year where people can go to and call it home. That's the true goal. I want people to go there and say, I found my best friend. I found the partner I want to be with. I made so many connections. I learned about myself. I feel like that's where I became my best self, and then come back every year and like know that they could center there. So that's my goal, is like really what I want to probably have a census at some point saying like, how do you feel about this? And then when I can get that answer, I think that that's what I've made it.
Yeah, that's an excellent goal. And it's the first time I've ever heard about anyone's goal being based on feedback from the community that they're serving in the past 3 years. And I love it. I'm wondering, do you have any restrictions when people are looking into this? They can hit your website and I'm sure find out a lot more than I'm going to ascertain today. But do you have restrictions? Are there age restrictions? Are there any restrictions for people who want to attend?
For the virtual festival, it's 18 and up. One of our sponsors is kink.com. So they're going to be doing like kinky workshops and like talking about bondage and sexual wellness. So it's 18 and up for that. And then for the festival that's live, it's 21 and up, because we do have an option of like, if you do want to grab a um, like spiked lemonade, you can do that. Like, it's definitely not centered around any drinking, but we do have that option
But
for
it
you.
won't be sober either. Yeah, I got
Right,
you.
exactly. It's that middle ground. We call it choose your own adventure. We have 3 workshops going on at once, and they're all ranging in different things. Like, one could be a networking workshop, and the other's a nutrition workshop, and the other one's a movement workshop. And so you get to choose during that whole hour which one you're going to, and it's constant and it just doesn't stop. And then so that's why like we have options for you. If you want to go swimming and that's your medicine at the time, go swimming. If you want to go sit in silence and meditate, that's your medicine. If you want to go have a drink with your friends, and that's your medicine, but it's 100% not focused on that. So we just want to show that people can be balanced, and that you don't have to be in those like two spectrums of like,
Yeah.
I'm in AA, or I'm like partying every single second.
Absolutely. Life is absolutely in between those two polar opposites. When will you start selling tickets? Are you already selling tickets for 2021?
We are not. I think we will probably be launching the actual ticket sales probably January 2021. And then really, because I want to take this time definitely to fine tune all of the things that, kind of got thrown up in the air during COVID-19, and deliver my best to say, here's exactly what's happening. Because of COVID-19, we actually switched venues. So that's a big reason like why we're not putting tickets on sale right now, because I want to give everyone all of the resources of exactly what this venue entails. Like, what can you expect to see there? And how will the camping be? Or is there power? So there's so many things that I need to deliver first on my end.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even imagine. Like I said, I swarm, like you just mentioned that whole can of worms just with the venue. I hadn't even thought about venue. I was still on like vendors and like activities and people leading, you mentioned all these workshops,
Yeah.
specialists, like it's daunting. And
Mhm.
to that end, how big is your team right now? Can you give us like a vague head count?
Yeah, we have about 8 people on the team,
That doesn't
and
sound big enough.
it,
For
yeah,
my head, I'm like, you need like 25, but
I
yeah,
could use 25. I could definitely use 25. I'd say I do. I'm working every day. I know that's just what it's going to take. And as long as I'm, staying super productive in the tasks that I need to be doing, it does really move forward.
yeah,
But I'd say my team is small but mighty. We do
nice.
a lot, and also it's interesting what one person can do, like the outreach that one person can have. So yeah,
True.
I'd say my team of 8 is freaking killer, even though we could use double of everyone.
Yeah, and right you are. A team of 8 is better than a team of 100 if everyone's doing a great job.
Mhm.
So will you take volunteers? If someone's hearing this and interested in volunteering, can they reach out to you like for the actual event?
100%. Yeah. I mean, we actually have been looking for ambassadors for the virtual festival and volunteers for the live event. We had so many incredible volunteers that we interviewed that were ready to go for the live event that we transferred their tickets over. So we do have a volunteer team. But yes, if anyone's listening and believes in this and like wants to be a part of it, please reach out to me. Please reach out to us. You'll see on the website that there's a contact us little link, and I'd love to discuss more and like see how we can work together and what we can do.
Yeah, so exciting, so cool. I can't imagine there wouldn't be a ton of people that wouldn't want to volunteer. It sounds fantastic. So wrapping everything up today, we're going to end with like my favorite piece of these podcast series in this series. And I'm wondering if you ran into a young woman or a female identified non-binary individual, anyone essentially other than like a cisgendered straight white man. And they said, hey, Madison, listen, I've kind of got this like history and past going on with my career. I've cultivated a lot of skills. I'm doing this, this, and this. And I want to reach out now and start doing like what I've kind of grown up doing and also have always wanted to do. And I'm gonna launch this mini festival or conference or convention, something of that magnitude. And they said, can you give me your top 3 pieces of advice? What would they be, knowing what you know now?
Yes. Oh, yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, I can talk about the top 3 pieces of advice I have for the event, but if someone is getting involved with anything that's social or community based, like I was saying, like my goal has to do with feedback, but you can't take feedback so personally, because I will get the feedback that's like, wow, this is going to change my life. Thank you so much. And I'll also get the feedback of like, why don't you have enough fat presenters? Or why don't you have this and that and that? And it's like, we're as accessible as we can possibly be, and we're as diverse as we can possibly be. And I'm always trying to learn and I'm always trying to do better, but I won't be perfect in everyone's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are doing something socially or for anything, just work on having thick skin. But let's talk about the top 3 if you're going to run an event. One would be a problem solver. Expect to put out fires and adapt and be creative. Number 2 is prepare for 20%. Usually in events, 20% of people will not show up. They'll come late. There's going to be some situation with them. So I try to oversell. If we have a goal of 500, I oversell by 20% because it's pretty common that 20% will just not happen. And number 3 is just expect for the unexpected. I mean, we don't want to be negative here. Everything is like we're realistic. Our goals are positive. At the same time, if it rains, what does it look like? If the power goes out, what does it look like?
Yeah.
We didn't expect a pandemic to happen.
I know. You
That's
just got a
one.
baptism in that one.
Exactly. That was 100% an unexpected one that I was not prepared for.
Yeah.
But the more prepared for like things like sound to go out or like any things that could potentially happen that you could think of. Like I have a whole risk manager, and that's their job, is literally to look for the problems and then try to solve them before they happen. Then that's a good thing to have.
Absolutely. All right. So I have an overarching rule of getting feedback and incorporating it, but don't take the feedback too personally. And then your top 3 are be a problem solver, prepare for the 20% of the unknown or undersold. And the third one is expect the unexpected and always stay prepared. I
Yes.
love that. Those are so genius. They actually communicate across all industries. And I bet you that they're the top 3 that most industries don't think enough about. And with founding any enterprise, and ought to think more. I think in the event space, you're constantly having to think about 50,000 balls. And so you keep these wonderful umbrellas of thought constantly happening.
Mhm.
Whereas when you get more microscopic in your details with, companies, you tend to forget a lot of those. Like, especially the expecting 20% less of sales. I think a lot of founders would go under less if they actually expected far less than projections, you know?
Totally. Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. Well, Madison, we're out of time, but I just want to say thank you so much. This is our second hour together. You've been so gracious, and I'm so excited about your festival, the virtual one, the in-person one in 2021. I really appreciate your time today and all of your candor and your story.
Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate you too.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, we've been speaking with Madison Eker. She is the founder of Some of Us Festival. You can find it online at www.someofusfest.com. Until we speak again next time, thank you so much for giving us your time. And remember to stay in love with the world and always bet on yourself. Sláinte.